slideshow.
I want that to disappear a little bit, but let's see.
Just put it.
Well, I guess I can just put it right down here.
Can you still grab it?
Yeah, I should still do grab it when once that's done.
Okay.
Okay.
Something.
Good evening. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the school board meeting this Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. The public is encouraged and welcome to address the school board at the hearing of citizens. The board clerk, Kathy Tompkins, collects the cards for a hearing of citizens. Once the hearing of citizens begins, no more cards will be collected. I will call you forward at the appropriate time. Today, our student representative is Noah Supley and will lead us in the pledge, so please stand. Noah is from Riverview High School, and Riverview High School JROTC will be doing our flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Riverview High School JROTC. Please be seated and enjoy Danielle Tran, solo violinist at Booker High School. The piece she will play is Caprice 16 by Paganini. Her teachers are Sue Chung and Catherine Balouf, and under the direction of wonderful principal Dr. Rachel Shelley. That was amazing. Watching your fingers work I had to turn on from the other way. It was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. March is Arts in Our Schools Month, and I would like to invite Angela Hartsvixen. I always mess up this last name. Hartvixen, Fine Arts Program Specialist and Manager of EdExplore SRQ, to the podium to begin our presentation. And I am so sorry, Angela, every time.
It's definitely a challenging name. My husband warned me about that before I took it, so, but thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm the Fine Arts Program Specialist for the school district, and in that position, I get to support our incredible arts teachers, students in the arts and arts programs. I'm also fortunate enough to work closely with my colleague in the arts in Sarasota County Schools, Brian Hirsch. March is definitely a month of celebration, as you said. It is Dance in Our Schools Month. Let me figure out my PowerPoint here. There we go. It's Dance, Music, and Theater in Our Schools Month, as well as Youth Art Month. All across the district, there have been concerts, exhibits, performances, and other celebrations of the arts in our schools. However, in Sarasota County Schools, we celebrate the arts all year long. Soon, we'll have our April and May arts calendar available for the public to see what's going on. Beyond the always important performances and concerts for music, theater, and dance, we also have district and state assessments. In the arts, an assessment is an evaluation of a student's technical skills, understanding of the elements and fundamentals of the art form, and an adjudication of their artistry. This performing arts assessment season has been strong, with many groups attending and having great success. These include Music Performance Assessment, or MPA, for our large music ensembles as well as soloists and small ensembles, Dance Assessment for our dancers, and Thespian Festival for our theater students. Danae, who played so beautifully just a moment ago, is a 2023 All-State Orchestra student, one of among the 63 3rd through 12th grade students we had representing Sarasota County Schools from across the state in an all-state ensemble in January. I will follow up this meeting with a list of our all-state students for all of you to see. There are also school and community art shows, exhibits, and contests continuing across our district and area, with our students winning awards in many, including the county and state fair. And, the district-wide spring art shows at Art Center Sarasota and Venice Art Center are going to be coming up soon in April and going into May, and we hope that you'll be able to check them out while they're up. I'll make sure I send you invitations. The two paintings in the middle of this slide are by Pineview 9th grader Mia Liang, and she has these two pieces have gone on to the national level of the Scholastic Art Awards, judging with several of our other Sarasota region art pieces. We'll find out tomorrow about our national awards, and we'll hope that Mia or other of our student awards will be recognized. I'll let you know more about our regional winners and our national awards soon as well. Sarasota's community arts organizations and artists provide powerful hands-on explorations via the edexploresrq.com platform, and additionally offer outside of school opportunities to further develop students' skills and talents. We're extremely grateful for those opportunities and relationships. The arts are excellent for 21st century skill building, starting as early as elementary school, as you can see from these elementary artworks and quote. The 4 C's, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, are brought to life in the visual and performing arts as these disciplines prepare students for life beyond school. The power of the arts in students' lives is meaningful and impactful. So you heard Danae play for you earlier. I'd like to welcome her back to tell us about what the arts have meant to her in her life, in school, and beyond. Danae.
Hello, my name is Danae Tran. I'm a I'm a senior at Booker High School in the VPA music program. Today I played for you Paganini Caprice number 16. I want to thank my teachers and my family for their help in getting me here. The arts have deeply impacted my life. I have been a violinist since I was 5 years old. I grew up surrounded by music and dance, and I've learned how to be open-minded, bold, creative, and passionate. Violin helped me develop confidence and learn how to take risks. The discipline and perseverance that I've learned will take me far, all the way to college, where I'll be pursuing a degree in violin performance. I've committed my life to being an artist, and the work ethics I have developed has influenced my whole life, including my academic classes and in the community. The arts have taught me how to be more creative in all my assignments, and I have learned how to lead a team, how to build relationships with peers and professionals, and how to present myself with dignity and strength. I got the chance to network in the professional music community in Sarasota and beyond. Playing violin for many years has helped me develop a great memory, coordination, critical thinking skills, and the ability to pick up things quickly. I found a place where I belong, and I am grateful for the chance to tell you about it today. Thank you so much.
Danae speaks for so many students across our district who have been powerfully impacted by the arts in innumerable ways. We're so grateful to her for joining us tonight and for her teachers and administration of the Booker High VPA for supporting her on her journey. Thank you for helping us celebrate the arts this evening and all year long. Thank you for continuing to showcase our students' talents at these school board meetings. And lastly, thank you for your ongoing support of the arts in our schools. Without you, we would not be the amazing district we are in regard to the arts and what the arts do for our students. So thank you again. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. No, the arts would not be the same, our county would not be the same without the arts. So thank you so much for all the work you do. Mr. Suppley, I apologize. I went straight to 4. So I want to introduce our student representative, Noah Suppley from Riverview High School. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's wonderful to be here. Well, my name's Noah Suppley. I'm a senior at Riverview High School, and I'm in the IB-CP program. That's the IB Career Path program, where I can take classes that allow me to further my career path while also taking the rigorous IB program. I'm involved very much in my school, where I participate in multiple honor societies such as National Honor Society, Spanish National Honor Society, Science National Honor Society, and Rho Kappa, just to name a few. I've also helped start the Computer Science Club last year at the school. And finally, I participate in Key Club, which is a volunteer program. Speaking of volunteer, I use a lot of my free time to volunteer because I think it's very important for our community. I've spent the last 5 years volunteering at All Faiths Food Bank, where over this time I've gained the status of a student leader, where I also won the 2021 Youth Volunteer of the Year at the program. Along these lines, I also helped my brother 3 years ago create a not-for-profit program where we help donate books to those of needy schools. These schools need these classical novels to further the education of all the students. So my brother and I, to help this program, we created a non-profit program. This allows these students to get the resources they don't have. After I graduate, I would like to go to the University of Florida, where I've been recently accepted, where I want to study biology and chemistry. Science has always been a phenomenal program in our school, and it has helped me realize my love for figuring out the natural life and how things work. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us this evening. I recently presented you with a certificate of appreciation, and we wish you the very best of luck in the future. Moving on, and I apologize for skipping over that, superintendent's report. Dr. Foster.
All right, thank you. First of all, I also would like to thank Angela and Brian for offering the arts programs in our schools and working with all our schools to provide incredible programs for our students. It definitely makes a difference for so many students in our district. I'd like to share that the district's annual parent guardian survey is open. The survey will be available at www.sarasotacountyschools.net/annual survey until Wednesday, April 3rd. Parents and guardian can view the annual student survey now on the district's website ahead of it being made available to students in grades 6 through 12 later this spring. Parents and guardians who do not want their students in grades 6 through 12 to participate in the annual student survey are asked to click on the Parents Student Survey Opt-out form. And the link is on that same website, and complete an opt-out form anytime from now until Friday, March 31st. A reminder that athletic choice applications for the 2023-24 school year are available for non-traditional students wishing to participate outside of their zoned high schools. So these are students that are not attending one of our traditional high schools. Applications can be downloaded on our website. Applications must be submitted by Saturday, April 1st. Also, a reminder about the Family Access Portal. Parents and guardians are strongly encouraged to create a portal account if they haven't done so already. Please also consider checking your existing portal account to make sure your information is correct. Please visit the district website and search Family Portal for more information and to access the portal. And finally, I want to congratulate our budget team for receiving the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the July 21st, 2022 budget cycle. This is a huge accomplishment and played a major role in Sarasota's upgrade to its bond its upgrade in its bonds rating. So congratulations to Ms. Penner and her team. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We are moving on to the hearing of citizens. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. When the timer flashes yellow, 1 minute remains, and you will need to begin to summarize. You must stop speaking when the buzzer rings. Please note that respect for divergent viewpoints and civility will be shown at every board meeting. Whether you agree or disagree with a speaker, you should listen politely and respectfully without making any sounds or approval of disapproval, including clapping. I recognize that there are a lot of passion and emotions with the decisions that come before this board and the impact that they have on our students, families, staff, and community. As such, I believe it is important that we afford the opportunity of every speaker to be heard. Any comments during a hearing of citizens to my fellow board members that we will, if you would like to respond that will take place at the conclusion of public comment. My request is that when you respond, you keep it to the issues that have been brought forward and refrain from directing it to any individual of the public. Per state statute 1001.372, parent 3, anyone causing a disruption will first be given a warning, and if the conduct does not stop, you will be removed from the chambers. And I will call the first 2 speakers. I have Jean Hutter and Raina Benzini.
Florida. I'd like to make some comments about the last meeting, please. The chairperson mentioned about not bringing politics into the meeting. Politics have already been brought in when the governor said he was targeting Tom Edwards and other non-Republicans in other counties and to get them off the school board. Mrs. Bikondi mentioned at the last meeting that Tom Edwards was reading stories to children in classrooms and having his picture taken with the children. Tom Edwards did not wear a sign saying, "I'm gay and I'm going to groom you to be gay." And I'm sure the teachers did not say, "Tom Edwards is gay and he's going to groom you to be gay." The chairperson should have shut down the vile speech as displayed by Mrs. Bikondi. Mrs. Bikondi mentioned that Tom Edwards sold alcohol in the past. Maybe that was his means of employment. Mrs. Bikondi mentioned that the Gay Men's Choir of San Francisco said they were going to convert your children. The song is obviously a tongue-in-cheek, and if you really listen and not react, you'll realize that they are all saying is that they will convert your children to become more tolerant, accepting, and loving toward humanity. Stop reacting and listen. It seems all the uproar is coming from the narrow-minded in their dark caves looking to lash out. Divisiveness needs to end. The school board should be diverse and not a one-sided political school board. You must lay aside your political agenda and work for the good of the children under your care. Being gay is not something one becomes. It is in one's genetic makeup. Would I choose to be gay with all the animosity and harm that has been done and is being done to gay persons? Pedophiles were mentioned. Scientific research mentions that pedophilia is a disease separate from and in no way related to homosexuality. In fact, research demonstrates that most pedophiles, more than 95%, are heterosexually oriented. We hear in Scripture, thou shalt not bear false witness. If you're going to claim to be a Christian or any religion, this forbids speaking falsely in any matter, lying in any way, devising and designing to destroy your neighbor. It is speaking unjustly against our neighbor, to the prejudice and destruction of their reputation. I would ask Mrs. Bikondi, why don't you try getting to know Tom Edwards? God forbid you might like him. I believe that everyone has someone in their family okay.
Thank you very much. Raina Benzini, Matthew McHugh, and I apologize if I do not pronounce names correctly. I'm doing my best.
That's quite all right. My father mispronounced my name, so don't worry about it. Good evening. My name is Rana Bazzini, and I'm a resident of Sarasota. E pluribus unum, one out of many, one. The motto of the United States, our diversity. It's both our bane and our boon. The pendulum has gone from assimilation to separateness, and how we educate our children got caught in the middle. Our founding fathers had a pretty good take on education. As a necessity of good government and the happiness of mankind, schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. So what's happening here in Sarasota? To say we've endured a period of chaos is an understatement. Terms like CRT, grooming, are red herrings. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and SEL, social emotional learning, and academic curriculum, those are real issues. DEI, SEL, and an academic curriculum are not mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, all are necessary for student success. The focus on the mental health of our students is evidence of that. No one can function well when emotionally or mentally upset. May I be so bold as to suggest that Mrs. Bikondi would have benefited from a little SEL. I was delighted to hear of the success of the trade academies, a much-needed focus for students who are not college-bound. I also smiled when Mr. Enos, addressing the needs of the staff, whatever was needed, a Rolls Royce, whatever, they've got it. I fear if Tallahassee has its way, which it looks like it will with the passage of HB1 and SB 202, they'll be lucky if they can afford a used Edsel. I'm not sure what our board has in mind when this comes to pass. The vaunted voucher system and what choice really looks like may not be what has been envisioned. Be careful what you wish for. Thank you.
Matthew McHugh.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm sorry?
Sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be very quick and be to the point. I think the members of the school committee, particularly the chair, all of the public, the voters of this county, an apology for what took place last week. The hateful speech had no place at a government meeting, and I think you owe us all an apology.
Thank you. Northam Wirtz and Jason Champion. Maybe it's Nathan. Can't read that right.
Jason Champion. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Appreciate the work that you guys put into what you do. I am an American. I am a son. I am a brother. I am a husband. I am a father. I am a grandfather, and I am gay. Allowing the homophobic attack and false claims hurled at Mr. Edwards by a representation of a local hate group reflects not only the inability to control this room and is deeply reflected of some morals and disregard for fellow man. As a 18-year resident of Sarasota, I urge you to consider the impact of such vitriol not only on the LGBT community, their families and friends and allies, which were presented under the shroud of Christianity. Will my clergy please stand up with me? Thank you. These folks believe in Christianity like I do, unlike what was presented, because when Christians believe and become convinced that they are the only authority on the truth, the only way is to control the power, and anyone that opposes them is evil. That is when we no longer know that you stop worshiping God and start worshiping yourselves. It is deeply concerning that this attack was allowed to happen because it was clearly motivated by political gain and to intimidate fellow taxpayers. The inaction of the leaders and counselors before us let this stunt run down and hurt not only the children that were present in this room, but more so the communities and families at large which you are to serve. I applaud Mr. Edwards for the sheer grit and decorum through his tenure. He has brought wonderful ideas to this board, such as affordable housing and some vocational programs. Programs that should be focus of this board to maintain the school system, continue to keep the A rating, and remove the political speech and hatred. Mr. Edwards is a model example of a student and citizen here and is the only sunny spot left on the shady Sarasota School Board.
Sorry. I'm sorry, there was, thank you. Nathan Wirtz, I don't know, or if I'm not saying your name correctly. Norman, sorry, couldn't read the writing. And then after that, I have Richard Canarell.
Norman Wirtz, I live in Nokomis. I'd like to say 80% of the school board has been a disaster even prior to the election, given people campaigning at the Hollows and being hosted and supported by the Proud Boys and labeling one candidate as a baby killer. Then an instant after being sworn in, there was the immaculate decision to terminate the superintendent, incurring $170,000 of useless expense. Then the chairman, a founder and former member of Moms for Liberty, allowed a former member of Moms for Liberty to rant on about Mr. Edwards' lifestyle. And now the board is silent about the $60 million of public school funds being diverted to education vouchers. Perhaps the $8,000 per child that the chairman will receive to send her children to a non-public school has influenced this decision to remain silent. Hopefully, the citizens of Sarasota will begin to realize what a poor decision they made in electing such a board, and hopefully this will happen before all of the teachers resign.
Thank you. Richard, I appreciate the passion, so if we can get through it through your jazz hands if you can. Richard Canarelli and Nicholas Makucha.
Thank you for this opportunity to share my concerns. I have several points that I want to share with the board. The first pertains to the disgusting spectacle I observed that occurred during the last meeting, in which a member of the audience vilified a member of the board. Before I came here, I went to the school board website and looked up the rules for guest speakers. I found the following. All guest speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a manner in which all our students would be proud. The problem was compounded by the fact that the speaker was allowed to continue without interruption and in clear violation of the speaking guidelines. Moving on. I also want to point out that I am aware that a specific constituency was responsible for electing the majority of the board. I accept that and I understand that. However, I wish to remind the board that it represents all of us, not just their constituency. To that end, many of us do not support restricting or banning books. We believe that parents can guide children according to their values, but banning books is a practice of dictatorships, not democracies. I want to impress upon the board that we live in a diverse culture and children of all faiths and colors attend our schools. You cannot erase diversity, and more specifically, you cannot erase Black history. Black history is part of American history, and our students need to know it to become good citizens. Secondly, we do not support using the instruments of government to pass laws that withhold funds from school districts who follow mask guidelines issued by the Center for Disease Control. They were trying to protect our children and their families. It was a difficult and unprecedented crisis, and school districts should not be subject to financial penalties for doing what they felt was the best interest of the children, their families, and the employees. I would be interested in knowing the board's position on withholding these funds. I do not support efforts that make students suffering from gender dysphoria feel they are second-class citizens or make them consider suicide. It would be simple if there were two neat gender packages, one male and one female, but the reality is very different. Sarasota School has a good academic record, but nevertheless the superintendent, a conservative Republican, for reasons I can't understand, was terminated. I believe the only reason a superintendent should be fired should be for a clear violation of a contract or for not achieving reasonable academic standards. Finally, I support our public institutions, both our schools and our hospitals. They should not be a victim of a culture war. They are used by people of all faiths, colors, and political persuasions. They must be protected and supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas, but I'm sorry, I can't tell if this is a C or an L, but Machuca. Barbara Vaughn. My apologies.
Oh, you're fine. I appreciate the irony of mispronouncing words at a school meeting. I'm here representing Equality Florida Action, the statewide LGBTQ civil rights organization. I'm here to speak in defense of school board member Tom Edwards, specifically in response to a community member's recent defamation of his character. This individual's apparently rehearsed tirade included unfounded claims of inappropriate behavior and ulterior motives behind Member Edwards' valued public service. The objective facts show otherwise. Moreover, we must call into question the authenticity of this individual's supposed concerns. If any of us truly believed our schools were riddled with the dangers this individual was so concerned about, wouldn't we immediately remove our children from said schools? The statements made by this community member are not grounded in reality, and it's clear that this person knows that. Rather, the comments reflect this individual's personal struggle with homophobia, an embarrassing condition that should be dealt with at home rather than in the public forum and on the public record. Because these negative comments do not exist in a vacuum. The dangerous rhetoric and anti-LGBTQ backlash are having an impact. Our schools are less safe for LGBTQ kids now than they have been in the past decade. According to the CDC's 2021 Youth Risk Behavior Survey, negative mental health outcomes and the suicidality rate increased significantly in Florida's LGBTQ young people for the first time in nearly a decade. Our families and their youth will not be intimidated by anti-LGBTQ hate. We expect school districts to ensure every student has access to safe facilities and a school environment free from harassment, discrimination, and exclusion. This school board should protect all students and respect all families, including LGBTQ students and families, so they can learn and thrive in a safe environment. We're grateful for Member Edwards' positive work to affirm all students in this school district, and we assure Member Edwards he is on the right side of history. Thank you.
Barbara Vaughn and Layla Newcomb.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Vaughn, live in Venice. And as usual, I'm going to pray because Lord knows we need it today. Father God, we give you thanks and praise as we are obliged to do for the many blessings you shower upon us. We thank you, Lord, for the wonderful state of Florida, for the beautiful weather we've been having. We thank you for the leadership in our state and in our community. We thank you most of all, Father, for our children. We ask you to bless our children. Bless the parents, the grandparents, and other family members and friends who participate in their raising. Lord, we know they are your children, and we need to raise them to be yours. Help us, Lord. Turn the hearts of those who are going in the wrong direction You know the right direction, Lord, and we pray that you would show us all the way we should go and be there for us and with our children as we steadfastly hold them close, love them, and raise them with the standards and the values from our Holy Bible. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for hearing our prayers, and thank you for blessing us and our children. Amen.
Thank you. Lila Newcomb and Michael Weddle.
Hello, Leela Newcomb, grandma of 3 in public schools. I think most of us here agree that the emotional violence displayed at the last meeting was over the top and way out of line, and to top it off, with children in the room. People's opinions are one thing, but that went way beyond civility, and it didn't stop there either. I have sadly seen this continue with some very hateful stuff on the internet targeting Mr. Edwards. There was one particularly nasty TikTok, revolting, toddler-level humor that I cannot stop seeing, even though it's been almost 2 weeks. Not even in the same universe as respecting or disrespecting other people's opinions. Now, I did peek at one public page, I wish I hadn't. I made the mistake of making what I thought was a polite comment under one of the posts there about how differing individuals within a conversation can make for well-rounded decisions. A couple of people posted laughing emojis under that, one of whom hid behind the name of the page. And that was the very least of it. Now, I was told it was possibly one of you folks or husband that did that, or they're commenting or even running that page. I hope not. I do hope that none of you or your family members have contributed to or support this, as has been speculated. You're all elected officials, every one of you, and I think it is fair to say that some decorum is expected in person and online, including family members, please. I've said this before. My humble opinion is about what the actual boogeyman is here. It's not woke or CRT or DEI or the latest one, SEL. No, it's fear. I think everyone, whether they want to admit it or not, was terrified by the pandemic. I've said this before, and I was too. And then the result of fear is often denial, leading in many cases to angry and even illogical behavior. I'm not a psychologist, but I have done some studying of it, and I believe that all of us, to varying degrees, have been thrown off balance. Whatever it takes, I hope that we, the human race, can recover from this, and soon, because it is insane and very destructive. Maybe we could all use a little SEL. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Weddle, and then Dan Miner.
Yes, Mike. I have a much narrower topic, and I don't want to at all diminish the hugely important topics being discussed here, the problems, some of them exposed in this very room. But I was watching the work session today online, and towards the end, far past the time when I normally zone out, there was a discussion of something called Vermilion Corporation of Hillsdale, Michigan. And I'm from Michigan, and I just wanted to comment on that a little bit, because a few of the things weren't part of the discussion. When I did a corporation search for Michigan, Vermilion was incorporated in Hillsdale just 3 months ago. So there was a discussion about bringing them here to demonstrate the work that they have been doing. I think that'd be a very short meeting. I don't suspect you're going to find very much. Also, the registered agent for Hillsdale, his name was mentioned. I'm sorry, I keep saying that. The registered agent for Vermilion, whose name was mentioned, Jordan Adams, and there didn't seem to be a lot known about him. He was one of 2 of the Hillsdale College staff who got math books banned in Florida last year. There were 122 other professional readers who didn't find any problems. The state eventually released the notes, and he had found CRT math hidden in the math problems. So that's who Jordan Adams is. I can understand why Hillsdale may want to change their brand or change their name in some markets. It was mentioned at the meeting today that they've had a lot of publicity, they can't really hide their corporate culture anymore, and that may be a problem, a crossover problem, if the school deals with them. I became aware of Hillsdale through St. Vincent's College, a very beautiful Benedictine college in Pennsylvania. I was associated with it for many years. Benedictine, also a Christian college, and they sort of embarrassed, Hillsdale sort of embarrassed St. Vincent's at a symposium St. Vincent held on advocacy, economics, and politics. And the paper that they presented was advocating for oppressed white people in America and what Hillsdale termed black privilege. A year ago, as many of us know, the state of Tennessee rejected a plan to build Hillsdale-affiliated charter schools in the state of Tennessee. They rejected Hillsdale. The problem wasn't the Hillsdale history of erasing history, especially black history. The problem was the way that the college was perceived as being dismissive of the education profession. And I just want to give one quote. This was recorded off of an active microphone from the president of Hillsdale College. The president's quote was, "As a teacher, you don't have to know anything, because teachers go to the dumbest parts of the dumbest colleges."
Thank you. Dan Miner and Sheila Weiss.
I normally write my remarks out, and I've only got a couple of remarks written. So I am a pastor here in town. I'm part of clergy, and me being off script usually doesn't end up well. So I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to pray, and the reason I'm not going to pray is because I don't think that we need God. I think we need to be decent human beings and stop blaming God for a lack of help. Being a decent human being means there are people on this board that I vehemently disagree with, but I would respect you and honor you for the service that you've given this all day long. And anyone else who doesn't, I would be more than willing to politely confront and tell them that they're wrong. That's what civility is. When we've lost civility, we've lost everything. I realize that there may be a 4-to-1 vote a lot of the times, and 4 of you might agree on most issues. And you might be able to get all of your agenda through as the months and years to come. But even if every single agenda item is passed and everything goes your way, if we've lost civility, we've lost everything. When I'm really here because of the hateful, vitriolic, and vulgar accusations towards Tom Edwards, towards Mr. Edwards. I know him well enough to know he is one of the most decent, caring, and kind human beings I've ever met. I have 2 daughters in the school system, and I would be delighted if Tom came to either one of their classrooms and read to them. By the way, one of them goes to Dreamers and one of them goes to Riverview, so put that on your schedule. I believe he is not only decent, but I believe that he means well, as I believe all of you do. I believe every single one of you signed up to go through this election. You each get people up here that disagree with you and take comments too far, and you're still here. I'm begging you as a member of the community. My grandfather was not only a veteran, but he was a school teacher. My mother was a school teacher. My brother is currently a school teacher and a couple of years away from retirement in this school system. I'm begging you, for the sake of our children, for the sake of our community, for the sake of what we love here in Sarasota, to do everything you can to put aside the politics, the power stuff, even maybe not liking one another, and be kind to one another, be respectful to one another, because our kids are watching. And I believe that if what happened here last week happened in one of the classrooms, that we would have held our children to a higher standard than we do their parents who come here and comment. I'm asking you to not only hold those parents as, if not more, accountable for their words and actions, but to be kind to one another. And let's teach our kids that as adults, that we're leading the way and we're holding ourselves to the standard that we should. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila Weiss, Nancy Wilson.
Good evening, school board members and Madam Superintendent. The The people that have come before me have not agreed with lots of stuff that has been going on, but they have disagreed with you with a lot of decency and kindness in their voices. I guess I'm here to talk about what other people are talking about, and that's the level of vitriol that Mr. Edwards had to experience over and over and over again for 3 solid minutes. None of you should have to endure such vicious attacks. Last week was him, next week might be you, and it's not right. Madam Chair, you stated how important freedom of speech is, and we all agree that it is a pillar of American democracy. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I've been involved in communications for 30 years, and I know when a line has been crossed between legitimate criticism and abusive language. So I researched what freedom of speech means in this country. And according to the First Amendment Center, the Supreme Court and the lower courts identified 9 types of speech that are not protected by the First Amendment. And one of them that's not protected is defamation, including libel and slander. And perhaps Mr. Dugan can confer if I interpreted what I read from the First Amendment Center. So I have 2 questions for you, school board members. Would you consider bringing back the well-defined and published civility code that we used to have? We had it on the platform here. We published it everywhere. And basically, it was a set of guidelines for behavior at meetings. And governments around the country, red and blue, are reinstituting this civility code to try and bring down the tone and the tenor of all these meetings and what's going on. As public officials, you have the right to set the standards of discourse as high as you want them to be, and a tone of respect from every speaker, as we have witnessed so far today. The second question, a little bit different, would you consider a sergeant at arms at your public meetings until the rhetoric dies down? Because he or she could be independent, could be non-political, but as the protocol officer, their responsibility would be to preserve order and stop public comments from crossing the line.
Thank you. Nancy Wilson and Mindy Isaacs.
My name is Nancy Wilson, and I'm the pastor of Suncoast Metropolitan Community Church of Venice, Florida. And I'm so glad to be joined by many communities of faith in our communities who don't want to be associated with Christianity or a faith that is intolerant or that is hateful in any way. As I read my Bible, it says that we're to love our neighbors as ourselves, and that sometimes our neighbor may be someone like that Samaritan, someone who is different from us, but who in a time of crisis we really need. We really need each other in Florida. And I'm here to express my deep disappointment that the Sarasota School Board would allow someone to disparage and insult a school board member, Tom Edwards, who is of impeccable character and devoted to this community and its schools. We are admonished in the 10 Commandments to not bear false witness against our neighbor. And when we tolerate it and we do not challenge hateful or untruths, we're complicit and we're encouraging more of it. And I think our children are hurt by that most of all. We need kindness, civility, and courage right now to resist the targeting of vulnerable communities like the LGBT community, Jews, African Americans, Muslims, immigrants, transgender people, and others. I ask the school board to be vigilant in your duty. Thank you.
Thank you. Mindy Isaacs. Then Julie V.
Hi, I'm Mindy Isaacs. I have 2 requests of the board. The first one is one that many people have already spoken about tonight, and that is to ask Mrs. Ziegler to please take a stronger stance, to be a leader, and to stop the harmful behaviors that are now escalating in the school board meetings. We would hope that people would learn to do the right thing, but sometimes there have to be consequences when people are harmful. This is a public forum and within a community, so it's imperative that you consider how these behaviors are impacting the community as a whole. You want to unite us. You want us to trust you. So you need to stop the use of derogatory language, the screaming and yelling, the attacks on people, nor should you allow threatening behavior, threatening language. And it seems really simple. The harmful behaviors are not allowed in a meeting when the goal is to collaborate and to be productive to make positive changes. If a student, and this is said again before, but if a student, teacher, or principal engaged in this behavior, they would be suspended, expelled, or fired. So I think that's really important to consider. And I'm just wondering, how bad does it have to get before you're going to do something and stop it? I don't know where your line is, and that's scary. What you're doing now, your current strategy is not working because it's escalating, it's getting worse. So I really want you to consider that. My second request is for you to reconsider the change in the visitor policy. I can't understand why you would change a policy put into place after the Parkland shooting. You see, I can't understand because I lost a child because someone didn't follow a safety protocol. That would have saved his life. I understand that the emotions and the fear may fade away for many people after a tragedy, but I'm here to remind you that for those of us that are directly impacted by a tragedy, we don't forget. We live with the pain every day. So why take the risk? I regularly volunteer in my son's schools. I've always felt welcome. And this safety policy, it doesn't cost anything. It's a no-cost policy that doesn't hurt children, and parents can be involved in alternative ways. A legislator told me that a tragedy doesn't have to just be a tragedy. You can make positive change from a tragedy. Please remember the devastation, the loss, the trauma from the Parkland shooting, and why that policy was initially put into place. Don't repeat the pattern of where something bad happens. We make a change, but then we forget why that change is important. Please, it's just not worth the risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie V., and then Steve Simon.
This is a sincere thank you to Bridget Ziegler. Thank you for bringing out the best in my hometown. So I don't bury the lead, you showed Sarasota that love wins over hate. Us older folks don't have kids in school, but we're here because we know who we want our new neighbors to be who are moving to Florida. And it isn't the type of parent who applauds book bans or uses words that invoke lies, like grooming, woke, indoctrination, and CRT. We know that lies spread 10 times faster than the truth, so we can only feel badly for a real minority that so easily repeats and then believes these words that are used so frequently. Thank you, Bridget, for teaching us empathy towards these folks, because they're gonna need it when hateful words or even silence comes back to bite them, because it will. And by the way, I did contact the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus and invited them here, as well as donors who can make that happen. What we see in the school board meeting is a microcosm of our Sarasota. When you spearheaded the firing of a capable, beloved superintendent, you lit a fire among even supporters of yours who said, that could have been me or my husband. Thank you to those in this room who were disgusted by the uncomfortable, weak response to hate at the last meeting. Thank you to those who can't stomach a meeting, but can't wait to vote so this never happens again. Because when one is attacked, we are all under attack. And that's how Sarasota works. Apathy is off the table now after these few short months of malicious mayhem. Like a hurricane or tornado sweeping through a community, we will rebuild. Love is the majority in Sarasota. We will outwit, outplay, and outlast the hate. We are not going anywhere. And we have you, Bridget Ziegler, to thank for this. Your destructive actions is the reason for our newfound and growing power in numbers.
Thank you, Steve Simon and Joyce Peralta, sorry, that's an L.
Good evening. My name is Steve Simon. I don't have any prepared remarks, and even if I did, they wouldn't have been as eloquent as what I've heard the majority of the people say here this evening. But I particularly want to add my voice to the woman who spoke about the return of the civility to this kind of discourse. And I would ask that the school board make it a policy to bring back the civility policy from the past and to enforce it. And I say that not just as a citizen, but as a former educator. I think it would send an important message to the students that the school board can recognize the importance, formally recognize the importance of civility and respect in the classroom and the schoolyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce Peralta and Sally Nista.
Hi, I'm Joyce Peralta from Sarasota. I respectfully request that the Sarasota School Board inform voters on the projected financial impact of the Florida School Choice Bill on Sarasota schools. How much will this bill cost Sarasota schools in 2023, 2024, and for the next 5 years? I see financial implications on many of the decisions that you make. This is one that you should be running the numbers to see how much it's costing. HB 1 is already passed in the House and Senate. Bill 202 is coming up for a vote, and Governor DeSantis has already said he will sign these, giving an $8,000 voucher to take to private or home schools. I further request that each school board member go on record as to your support or rejection of this bill. This bill will have a huge impact on Sarasota school budgets, and we as taxpayers have a right to know. Sarasota voters approved additional school taxes last summer to support our excellent schools. If this taxpayer money is now being diverted to private religious schools, homeschool situations, private military schools, and other private schools, I truly question why we should tax ourselves this extra money. Those of you who recently elected did not campaign on school choice vouchers that would take money away from our public schools, did you? If you did, I missed that. I voted for this tax. I have no children or grandchildren in Sarasota, but I believe, as most residents do, that good public schools are good for the community. What will you cut? Will you be cutting the arts program we saw today? Will you be cutting sports? Will you be cutting history completely? Tell us where you'll make these cuts that will be happening. We deserve an answer, and you should be communicating with our legislators on how you feel about this bill and how it will affect Sarasota schools.
Thank you. I'm going to just try to remind everyone, no clapping. I'm trying to move things along. Sally Nista and Lisa Schur.
Sorry, I didn't hear my name. Good evening, Sally Nista. I support our Constitution. My theme for today is Courage is Contagious. The Florida legislatures are stepping up, taking a stand, and getting legislation in place that a large majority of Floridians support. They are passing laws that protect children, parents, and unborn babies. Praise God. They are putting woke ideologies back in the bedroom where it belongs. Courage is contagious. This is civility right here. Civility.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you want to pause our time, I'm just saying I think there's going to be diverse opinions up here, but I think the whole goal is to allow each person to be heard. So if we can all respect that, I think we're on the right path.
Thank you. Yep. Do as I say, not as I do. Courage is contagious. I read this morning that a California school district has hired a lawyer, self-prescribed anti-woke expert consultant. What a fantastic idea. I'll send you the name of a guy that would be perfect for the Sarasota County Schools. Courage is contagious. Speaking of hiring, how is that superintendent search going? I suggest that you partner with the board at New College. They are leading in a phenomenal way. New College now has a chance to become an elite, high-level academic-based institution like it was envisioned to be. Courage is contagious. Finally, it's interesting that up until 45 minutes ago, no one had stated that what Melissa Bacandi said at the last board meeting was a lie or false. Tom Edwards is who he is. The fact that Melissa points out is what seems to be so upsetting. Why is it upsetting? Because what Tom stands for and what Tom wants to do to our children in this school district isn't what a majority of what...
Stop. Everyone, excuse me, calm down. There have been multiple comments about lots of different people. If we just allow the people to speak and move forward, we cannot. The picking and choosing.
Sorry, I'm not going to sit here and allow.
Okay, well, we're going to recess.
Do as I say, not as I do. Do as I say, not as I do.
We are back at order. I will ask the members of the audience to please refrain from communicating with each other so that we can allow each person to speak. Sally Nista and Lisa Shore.
Why is it upsetting? Because what Tom stands for and what he wants to do to our children isn't what a majority of Sarasota parents, voters, and the community support. If school board races were partisan, the Sarasota school board elections would reflect the voters' values, and Tom Edwards would be back to selling liquor in New York. There is no need to apologize when Melissa is speaking the truth. We believe in equal rights for everyone, not extra rights for minorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Shore, Jason Gall.
Up a little higher. My name is Lisa Schur. I'm a Sarasota citizen, resident and mother of a child in the district. I'm all for civility. Can you explain to me, Mrs. Marinelli, why you voted on a public poll on a Facebook page? You voted yes, that Tom Edwards should be removed from the school board. I watched a school board workshop today. I'd done my homework like Mike. Do you really, Mrs. Ziegler, think that we're that stupid that we wouldn't look into this? When you brought it up, you didn't say word one about who Vermillion was. Now, anybody with half a brain, when they looked at that website, you knew obviously who they were, would know that this was a front group for something. They had no people listed, no address, nothing. You insult the intelligence of the stakeholders of this school district. If you want to send your own kids to school that follows Hillsdale curriculum, I support you 150%. But don't shove it down the throats of the other children in this district. And Mrs. Rose, I was so happy to hear your call for unity today, and I was also very happy with the many things that you said about the reading program. It was very impressive. But I think it's more than a little disingenuous to talk about unity in this community after her sneak attempt to bring Hillsdale curriculum into the community in a Trojan horse, if you will. Have you no idea what's going on at New College of Florida? And you want to talk about unity? Unity? You have children. They're little. I want you to think about when they're older and they look back on this time. Are they going to be proud of you? Remember that. That plus everything that goes up politically goes down. With regard to Melissa Bacondi's behavior at the last board meeting, intimating that Mr. Edwards had engaged in some nefarious activity while reading to children and that he was a groomer, which one obviously would interpret as an accusation that he was engaged in some criminal acts as a pedophile, we've come to expect this kind of behavior from her as we've seen it over and over for the last 2 years. We expect nothing less from Ms. Bacondi as she is blinded by hatred and not love. The good news, there's always good news, is that her behavior has inspired donations so far equaling $5,000 for Also Youth, a nonprofit group supporting LGBTQ youth. I urge each of you to go to their website and make a donation and let them know who inspired you.
Thank you. Jason Gall and Lily Brock.
Madam Chair, point of order. You're an hour behind time. You forgot to set your clocks ahead.
Oh, thank you for that input. I don't know if Lily Brock is not here. Then we'll move on to Sandy Armstrong. And after that is Sebastian Martinez.
Well, Board, I'm a citizen and resident of Sarasota, and I know that this is also where people can watch it on Zoom or however they do it, and I hope that they know that a good number of people left the room along with Tom Edwards after he was blasted one more time without being stopped by Ms. Ziegler. And, you know, I am concerned that, well, number one, there's an organization called PFLAG, and what they do is lead with love. And it was started by parents and friends of people who were gay and lesbian, and it's a wonderful national organization. And I suggest that you find that loving place in your hearts and start taking care of our schools from that direction. It was shameful, and I said it last time, Ms. Ziegler, that you didn't stop that tirade on Tom Edwards last time. It was terrible, and you should have stopped this woman doing it again, but you didn't. So I think that you know, maybe we took social emotional learning out of the schools, but maybe we need a social emotional learning class among the school board. The superintendent leaving cost us $170,000. And now we have someone who doesn't have near the education, near the experience running our school. I don't know who we're going to find to run it that has that kind of experience in education. My concern is that add on top of that the current plan to add so many vouchers of people who go to private schools whose parents can afford to pay the extra amount, although poor students' parents won't be able to pay the extra amount and go, but they can take money from my taxes and all of our taxes. And also people going to, other kinds of schools that don't have the criteria that our schools have and won for the respect of the Sarasota schools. So it doesn't make any sense, and I urge, as the person did earlier, for you to start really looking at the budget, because unlike the budget that the legislatures are talking about, private folks have looked into this, and it's more like over $1 billion. And I don't know what's going to happen to the arts. And the lovely young woman that sang last time, and this wonderful violin player, what's going to happen to these students who are enjoying the arts in our schools? What's going to happen to them? The other thing that I would like you to take up is the idea of low-cost housing. Seems like the last time that Mr. Edwards brought that up, you all didn't want to talk about it, but we have some land in our school district which could be used for low-cost housing for people who work in the schools, the teachers and the other folks that keep our schools going. Let's do that sort of thing.
Thank you. Sebastian Martinez, Randy Jacobson, and after that's Robin Williams.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Sebastian Martinez, and I'm a graduated student from Booker High School. Growing up as a son of immigrants, my parents, as all parents do, instilled in me key values of working hard, persevering, and respect. Respecting those with different viewpoints, respecting those of different backgrounds, respecting those older than me, or respecting those who hated me. And I'll always be grateful for that. Another key value that has stuck to me was to speak up in the face of adversity. What those at home or those present witnessed last board meeting was a bigoted, homophobic rant towards one of our board members and a failure to speak up in the face of bigotry. Several months ago, under the old board, I asked the board to enforce and stick to being able to uphold the school board's own policy to which it failed or it was inconsistent. Pursuant to School District Policy 222, it states, the chair may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, threatening, defamatory, obscene, or irrelevant. I do not support the removal of speakers, but what I'm referring to is if a speaker comes up and spews hateful or bigoted comments, we cannot accept that as tolerable behavior. So again, I'm calling on this board, Madam Chair, please do your job to uphold the district's own policies in running a board meeting. My main priority during, after, and for my foreseeable future is advocating and helping the students that learn in our schools and the teachers that teach in our schools. Which brings me to something I believe this board can accomplish, and in my opinion actually overlaps with something you advocate for, Madam Chair, which is addressing student behavior on school campuses. I believe, and as countless studies can reinforce, that students, both English and native Spanish speakers, should have every opportunity they can to be part of extracurricular clubs, sports, and activities that can then help them excel academically or physically to help them be college and career ready. Participating in extracurriculars has been proven to play an important role as students socially develop. They help reduce aggressive behavior and increase concentration and motivation, which are key attributes needed for academic success. Part of confronting this is working with the proper facilities to provide bus transportation for students in extracurriculars, providing transports from 3:30 to 3:45 p.m. so more students can take advantage of opportunities they otherwise miss out on. Taking steps like these can proactively address key issues like the achievement gap, student behavior, and the lack of student and parental engagement of all backgrounds in schools. I do believe this board can tackle key issues that students, educators, and parents face in our schools. But part of holding your elected office is leading by example. If our county's board cannot appropriately outline policies and enforce its own rules to address behavior in its own meetings, how can educators begin to address it in their classrooms? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Randy Jacobson and Robin Williams, and after that is Joe Tillman.
The recent abuse of the right of free speech imposed on this forum by a rant of lies directed at an elected member demands more of all of us. Today, I'm compelled for the first time to comment on the aftermath of the appalling tirade. It was 40 minutes after the speaker's uninterrupted remarks that the bigoted comments were even acknowledged, but then only as wildly uncomfortable and compared as inappropriate as any discussion in the classroom regarding sexual orientation. Not the same thing at all. The apology was really a non-apology. But if an apology was intended, what was it for? For failure to shut down an obnoxious attack of a person deserving respect as any other person? A fellow board member? Or sorry for fear of escalation, failing to do what is right out of fear of the consequences? Allowing the ugly attack to go on did not maintain decorum. Quite the opposite. And so the decks have been cleared for more ugly and irresponsible speech at future meetings. Appeasement, no consequences. Incredibly, the only rebuke was reserved for Mr. Edwards' remarks, termed as political. That rebuke was poorly timed, callous, and disingenuous. We're entitled to greater honesty here. I suggest an acknowledgement that the state's chief executive and the legislature have placed politics at the core of this board's most pressing issues through political actions, legislation. Although wrapped in derisive cultural themes, politics are here. They are just not the local politics that would better serve this community. And then the equally stunning no comment from other board members. No immediate comments denouncing the speaker, or at the very least, the ignorant remarks. No immediate words of support for their fellow board member. Why? Failing to stand by one of your own in the moment raises concern as to how teachers, staff, parents, and students can have confidence you'll do right by them in the future. You want to end divisiveness? Demonstrating solidarity would go a long way. The only positive from one of the ugliest, exceedingly irresponsible rants I've ever seen is the dignity and courage displayed by Mr. Edwards. Sadly, he has too much practice. The courage displayed that day is exemplary and is even more notable because, despite ignorant attacks, lack of board backing, and Tallahassee's targeting, he soldiers on for the kids and the schools and exemplifies strength of character.
Thank you. Robin Williams, Joe Tillman, Christine Hervig.
All roads lead to Rome, or rather these days to pseudo-classical Christian nationalist Hillsdale College, including Vermillion's Hillsdale College civic education specialist, Jordan Adams. Hillsdale and Vermilion are pushing a right-wing Christian nationalist agenda. Hillsdale's tentacles branch out in different states, particularly in Florida, with an effort to take over all levels of public education, K through graduate school. Hillsdale's arms extend to Washington, D.C., including the Kirby Center for Constitutional Studies. All D.C. programming is headed by Hillsdale Dean and now New College hostile takeover trustee Matthew Spaulding. He sure bounces around. Hillsdale President Larry Arnn is known for making racist remarks. After the Department of Education said that his college violated the standards for diversity, Arnn, in speaking in front of the Michigan legislature, said it was, quote, because we didn't have enough dark ones, unquote. Corcoran, who Arnn called one of America's most important men, spoke at Hillsdale while he was Florida's education commissioner. He chillingly said about our teachers, you have to police them on a daily basis, and fired a teacher who had a Black Lives Matter flag. He laid out his dystopian fantasy for crossing the Rubicon, the point of no return for public education. While Ed Commissioner Corcoran oversaw the destruction of Jefferson County public schools for the for-profit management company Academica. Now, as interim New College president, Corcoran's salary with bonuses which would top $1 million while he actively destroys the school's mission. Under Corcoran, Florida's civics curriculum was rewritten to reflect Hillsdale's Christian nationalist ideology by people from Hillsdale, along with billionaire Koch brother ideologues from their Bill of Rights Institute and the right-wing Jack Miller Center, also funded by the Koch brothers. It's all connected. Ms. Ziegler's Leadership Institute is funded by the billionaire Uihleins and Koch brothers, Betsy DeVos, the Kirbys, and other rich right-wing donors that want to decimate public education. With House Bill 1 SB 202, creating educational savings accounts worth $8,000 per student that millionaires and Ms. Ziegler can use to send her children to private schools, Mr. Corcoran's dystopian fantasy will become true, the bankrupting of public education. Mr. Edwards' motion to oppose HB 1 SB 202 was denied. This bill could cost the district over $60 million for the next school year. This will have devastating consequences. How many teaching and staff positions will be lost? What will happen to science equipment, music, theater, art programs? What will happen to class size? Ms. Ziegler, isn't it a conflict of interest that you hold a top position in the Anti-Public Education Leadership Institute and promote Hillsdale College-connected programs like Vermilion while chairing the Sarasota School Board and won't speak out against the defunding of the school district? Ms. Ziegler, it's critical that as chair you not allow defamatory, harassing, threatening hate speech against a board member or anyone to be tolerated at school board meetings. It's dangerous to public safety and is not protected speech.
Thank you. Joe Tillman, Christine Hervig, Mary Holmes.
My name is Joe Tillman. I'm a resident of Sarasota. My question that I'll be asking is, those of you who are anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ, and anti-teaching of Black history, my question I'm going to be asking, are you willing to be educated and are you willing to be more aware? I have been my background is working with delinquent teenagers for about 26 years, working in inner city Detroit for about 16 years, running group homes for inner city kids. When I grew up, I had no knowledge of LGBTQ. I grew up in a lily white neighborhood, went to grade school, middle school, high school, and college. I did not know Black kids. I did not know LGBTQ kids. I say I do not, they were there, I just did not know them. And as a social worker in inner city Detroit, I'll never forget the day that I got a call and said, Mr. Tillman, come over to the group home. One of the kids committed suicide. I went over there and I never forget what I saw, a 14-year-old boy lying on the floor. He left a suicide note, said, I'm sick and tired of being called gay, fag, etc. His last words on that note were, I can't take it anymore. I took that note to his mother at the funeral. I said, did you know your son was gay? She said, yes, I knew he was gay. And I told him if he didn't change, he would go to hell. That's what she told me. That became an awareness for me. I had to learn more about what LGBTQ meant. I did not know, so I became educated. I went to workshops. I read books. I led discussions on that. I become more aware, more educated. Now I know. I have a much better understanding. I had 3 kids when I worked with them in the inner city Detroit and group, and the institutions that committed suicide. 2 were because they were gay. When you ban books and promote that kind of stuff here in Sarasota, you promote that anti-gay. You make those kids feel bad about themselves. You raise the suicide rate of LGBTQ kids. I have worked with, also in inner city Detroit, I have a book here called White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. Those who do not have an understanding, I recommend this book. I'm taking a course now. I read this book. It's wonderful to understand what white supremacy is, what systemic racism is, what white privilege is. I have white privilege. There are people in this room who do not have white privilege. You need to understand that. You need to understand what racism is. Systemic racism exists. It has been part of our country. The Civil War exists. We need to find out what went on with slavery and how those things affect us today. That is not something that little Johnny comes home and says, I feel bad because I'm white. They made me feel guilty. No, Johnny, you need to understand. So I ask you again, are you willing to be educated? Are you willing to be more aware? The idea of woke has come up. Woke means awareness. That's what it means, aware of what's going on.
Thank you. Christine Hervig, Mary Holmes, Sean Bartley.
Hi, thank you. Hi, thank you for letting me speak here tonight. I'm sorry that Mr. Edwards had to leave. One of the issues I wanted to talk about tonight was the abusive bullying public statements to him during the recent board meeting that were allowed to continue for a full 3 minutes. But so many people have spoken tonight, and they're so much more eloquent than I could be, that I will go on to my second issue, which is I hope that the board is going to release a statement on the current proposed legislation, House Bill 1, Senate Bill 202. How will our tax dollars in Sarasota be diverted from public to private, charter, and homeschools? Have you made a clear and accurate, unbiased projection of the financial impact on Sarasota district school budgets for the first year through the fifth year? If you have, I haven't seen it. This House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 202, they're called school choice, which is a deceptive name. Implementing them will devastate the public school districts, which may be the intent. They're going to divert public tax dollars to fund private schools and homeschooling, and they could end up diverting $4 million from Florida public school funding in the first year alone, according to the Florida Policy Institute. You can check out their website for more information on this and other bills. And the ultimate goal really is to ruin public schools, to destroy them and privatize education in Florida, because that's where the money is. No good can come from defunding public schools. Supporters want to make money off the backs of our children. Any family, no matter how wealthy, can get up to $8,000 a year to send their child to any school or to just homeschool. It's fiscally irresponsible and weakens the separation of church and state. And Senate Bill 202 adds a nasty little twist, deregulation of public schools. I am sick of cynical politicians who pretend to care about the quality of students' education while taking money from organizations that actively seek to privatize K-12 education. These organizations, like John Kirtley's PAC, Florida Federation for Children, view schools as investment opportunities, nothing more. The weaponization of woke is simply propaganda to gin up grievance and motivate a small but very vocal segment of the voting public who don't understand the underlying motivation behind the push to privatize schools. And that motivation is money. Education privatizers use their political collaborators to destroy trust in public institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Holmes, Sean Bartley, Michelle Posey.
Good evening. My name is Mary Holmes, and I'm a veteran ESC teacher of 34 years. The past 30 years have been spent teaching at Oak Park. I'm here tonight to discuss SHIT, Sarasota helicopter parents interfering with teaching. This is the unnecessary and unappreciated drama you have created by attempting to establish an overall atmosphere of frustration and mistrust among parents of public school students with outlandish and irresponsible claims that their rights were somehow being violated, that the masses must demand their right to walk their children to their classrooms. All you did was create an atmosphere of chaos and anxiety among the most volatile and vulnerable students in Sarasota County, my kids at Oak Park. Time for a reality check. The public needs to know that despite your best efforts to create feelings of mistrust between parents and schools, a measly 0.3% of parents in the entire district believed your idiotic rhetoric. Just what were you hoping for? That teachers would be caught teaching an indoctrination pledge, the secret handshake? You must have been so disappointed that more than 98% of parents in our school district have far more trust and awareness of what is happening in our schools than you do. Wow, 0.3%. So please save your drama for your mama, because as educators, we have important things to do. And you should take note that my colleagues and I practice CRT every day, conscientious, rational thought. We live in a time when school safety is an absolute paramount concern. In addition to the routine fire drills with which we're all familiar, your child's teachers, administrators, and support staff must also undergo monthly lockdown drills to ensure that our procedures and practices for protecting everyone in the event of a stranger with a weapon are as close to perfect as possible. I cannot think of a single person working on my campus that would not take a bullet for your child. Let that sink in. Having numerous unnecessary adults on campus, reassigning critical staff members to ensure that the process flows as smoothly as possible, needing to clog up our office, get screened, present ID, get a visitor badge, find the child's classroom, leave on time, ensure that all visitor badges have been collected, adds a completely avoidable degree of stress and deviation for normal routine, which is particularly essential for our students, and it presents danger for all. We had confidence in your child's ability to independently say bye to you at parent drop-off and begin their school day. It's a normal step towards independence. We've got a job to do.
Sean
We
Bartley,
are your
thank you.
child's teacher.
Michelle Posey.
So, Alta Vista, Southside, Brookside, Sarasota High School, USF, UF, degree in broadcast journalism. I was a reporter for a long time, and at the end of my career, general manager of the #1 TV station in Orlando, and I say that because I have never, in all of the coverage that I have done and seen, witnessed the heinous behavior that I have seen and observed in these meetings, ever. So very quickly, I'm a gay woman. My partner and I have been together for 37 years. I adopted, actually, we were raised by straight parents.
Ma'am, please address the board.
Okay, we were raised by straight parents, both of us. We were never exposed to anybody gay. You cannot groom a person's sexual preference. That just doesn't happen. Truly, if you could, there'd be all straight people. There wouldn't be any gay people. I adopted our daughter when the straight couple backed out because the birth mother tested positive on a drug test. Now, there was tremendous, created a lot of problems and tension, and my daughter has scoliosis and PTSD that she experienced from that. And then she got pregnant again, adopted my son. She died of a gun accident a year later. So here's the thing. They hung out with a lot of gay-friendly things. They're straight, but my son would resent ever being labeled as anything. I also took a young woman in high school when she was going to be homeless, a woman of color. So I know the prejudice that she experiences. She's straight too, by the way. They were bullied terribly in school for having two moms. And my daughter, who had mental health issues, as you can imagine, was bullied terribly for being dark and having more hair. So here in this school system, you can't use the book. It's okay to be dark. It's okay to be a little hairier. It's okay to be a little bigger. It's okay to have two moms. That book was banned here in the school system. And two moms, it could be a stepmom, an adopted mom, and a birth mom, okay? So a short story. When we moved to Charlotte for my career, my kids entered a magnet school there. And Charlotte back in 2002 was very Christian, still is. And there were a couple of teachers who had an issue. And they went to the principal and said, we have issues with these gay parents. And the principal said, you need to treat them just like you treat all other parents. My spouse got incredibly involved in the PTA and the school and the students. And the two teachers met her a month later, and took her to lunch, said what they said, and said
I don't want to cut you off, but your time is up.
we made a terrible mistake.
I'm so sorry. Your time is up. Thank you for that. Michelle Posey, Melissa Picandi.
Hi, Michelle Posey. I would just like the record to show that we still have 3 board members sitting up there, even though we've been called Christian white nationalist and been told we have white privilege. So thank you for your courage. Some people are going to say today that we've been targeting Tom Edwards, and I have to tell you, yeah, that's what I thought we were supposed to do. You're elected officials. I mean, Shirley and Jane probably would have said the same thing. I'm sure, Bridget, there's been times where you have felt like you've been targeted. We're supposed to come at you regardless of skin color, regardless of sexual orientation, to hold you accountable as elected members. Today, I have to tell you, I'm really discouraged that the person who represents my district, District 3, walked out without being able to handle a little bit of pushback. None of us here, if you had been to a board meeting before, none of us here have ever brought up someone's sexuality.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
It was brought up by Mr. Edwards. How else would we know? Think about it. How else would we know? And I think it's appropriate to say, people want to talk about name calling. I was called a Nazi by Mr. Edwards on Facebook. Did we bump our head and forget about that? I'm not saying it's okay, but I didn't see you here to be discouraged about that. My job is not to love you from the podium. My job is to hold you responsible as elected officials. And I'm going to continue to do that because I love this country, I love this district, and that's what I do. But I'm telling you right now, if you're really upset about some of the words that have been said at this podium, then I'm going to appreciate all of your support the next time we have a book review for material in our school systems right now, funded by our tax dollars, that are so sexually explicit, we really can't even read it here from the dais or from the podium. I'm going to appreciate all that support. I know people have talked about HB1. There's a lot of fear going around about HB1. I don't understand something. You will not drive a car that you bought in 1970 because you want the latest technology and the latest piece of machinery. But you'll worship at the feet of an educational industrial complex that hasn't changed in a century. The public school system is public because it's taxpayer funded. They're not saying we're not going to fund it through tax dollars anymore. We're just going to give parents choice. I don't know why that is so controversial. I really, really thought that I wanted to talk to Mr. Edwards about some of the programs he's had with the trade schools, because I feel like he's actually making the case for more school choice. I think that might be an olive branch that we could actually agree on. But unfortunately, he left, and I don't really understand. I think that it's your job to stick it out when it gets tough up there on the dais. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Picandi, Paulina Testerman.
Board members, Melissa McCondy. I just want to say a special thank you to SNN, the Herald Tribune, Board Member Mr. Edwards for giving me and Tom's woke agenda free press. I think this may be the very first time two news organizations collude with a publicly elected official to attack not only a private citizen, but a mother and a woman. SNN anchor Don Brennan is inciting violence by saying I should have been tackled. But then, thank you again for the free press to expose Mr. Edwards and educate the community on Tom's inside leftist agenda. Let me again remind you that Mr. Edwards is an elected official, and we as a community reserve the right to publicly question him and hold him accountable for his actions. Mr. Edwards' behavior is becoming so predictable. When he doesn't like what someone has to say, he throws out the victim card like today. Mr. Edwards says he is here for the children, when in reality his office is all about his agenda and him. He actually ran on no hidden agendas. And then in August of 2022, Mr. Edwards announced that he does indeed have a hidden agenda. He admitted he is a woke school board member working from the inside to make a change. The Stop Woke Act makes woke indoctrination illegal in the state of Florida. To some, calling Mr. Edwards a lawbreaker is harsh, but what else are parents to believe when he himself asked, how do we go about breaking the law? Mr. Edwards jumped right into the misinformation bandwagon by proudly displaying his Say Gay sticker. He even wore it to Pineview graduation. He shared it on social media with his husband. It is clear, Mr. Edwards, that he checks a box for the left, and he is exploiting himself to push the left's agenda. By wearing that sticker, it is apparent that he indeed is anti-parent and supports indoctrinating kindergartners through third graders with leftist ideologies. So now that it is clear that Mr. Edwards is anti-parent and believes it's okay to discuss adult sexual topics with 5-year-olds, what are parents to think when he is posting pictures of his kids, your kids on social media? It is insulting for Tom to go on a full-fledged story time with Tom tour to read to these kids whose parents he thinks are a threat. Again, if you're okay with sexual conversations in kindergarten, your visit to elementary school classrooms should come with a warning, informed consent, and a background check. I have a letter from a parent dated March 12th.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have had your opportunity to speak. She will be allowed to continue, please. And there has been plenty of comments by former speakers about other members up here that I would argue are completely inaccurate too. Allow the members to speak. You may continue.
Can I have my time, please? Thank you. I have a letter from a parent dated March 12th, 2023, to the Toledo Blade Elementary School principal, informing her that her daughter is in no way to have any contact with Mr. Edwards. The principal assured the parent of her request and also stated that district policy mandates that parents be given ample notice of when a guest speaker is coming in. Were all parents given informed consent about Mr. Edwards speaking to their children? And I do mean informed consent. As school board members, your top priorities should be for the safety of our children and communication with parents. Parents should be made aware of Tom's stated agenda and when their vulnerable children might be influenced by it. Furthermore, where is the governor when a sitting Florida school board member admits to unapologetically breaking the law and having a hidden woke agenda to indoctrinate children against parents' wishes? Tom even admittedly broke the law last board meeting by whispering to Mrs. Ziegler outside of the sunshine. Mr. Edwards says, I have worn out my welcome. Well, Mr. Edwards, obvious tonight, you can't take the heat, so you should get out of the kitchen.
Thank you. Paulina Testerman. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, excuse me. I recognize that there are disagreements, but all of the statements a particular group that just said, and talk about tolerance or whatever, are displaying the complete opposite. I respect that you don't agree with certain speakers, but all of your time has been afforded without interruption and without being disrespectful to you. So please afford that to all members, even if you disagree. I think we can rise to the occasion. You may continue.
Good evening. My name is Paulina Testerman. Last week, I received a link to your 2023 annual parent survey. The survey is to gauge how parents feel about the culture and instructional environment at our children's schools. The questions were comedy gold. Quote, this school takes effective measures to ensure the safety of students. No. Sarasota Public Schools are not ensuring the safety of students, but that's not the school's fault. It's this board's fault because this board decided that the high school students needed their mommies and daddies to walk them to class. And now you're expecting parents to hold the schools accountable for the mess that you created. Schools are understaffed, teachers are overworked, underappreciated, abused, disrespected, accused of grooming and indoctrinating children. Public education is underfunded. We don't have enough bus drivers, mental health counselors, cafeteria workers, substitute teachers. Oak Park alone has 35 vacancies for paraprofessionals alone. And you want parents to grade schools for how they are handling this public education crisis that you helped create? How convenient. Here's a great suggestion. Why doesn't the board do a school board survey? Why don't you ask parents and teachers and students how they feel about your progress? How they feel about Dr. Asplin getting fired? How do we feel about Character Strong being removed from the curriculum? How do we feel about public comments being cut down from 4 minutes to 3 minutes? I'll hold my breath on that survey. To all of those listening to me tonight, I highly encourage you to start following Mrs. Ziegler on Twitter and on Facebook. Tell me that her posts reflect a leader who is committed to our Sarasota community, rather than a politician who's using Sarasota School Board as a rung on her political ladder. In fact, Mrs. Ziegler is so busy reaching higher that she is simply too busy to tend to her local responsibilities. Exhibit A. 2 weeks ago, Mrs. Ziegler was unable to fulfill her commitment of reading to a local Sarasota classroom. This is the second year in a row that Mrs. Ziegler has committed to reading to a classroom and then backed out. Last year, she was a no-call, no-show. Imagine a classroom full of young students who are excited to have a guest reader, only to find out that the reader isn't coming, and they didn't even bother to call. Mrs. Ziegler, maybe you're too busy with your commitments to Moms for Liberty, the Leadership Institute, the Disney Oversight Board, to be able to advocate for Sarasota County Public Schools. I read in the paper that Disney Board had their first meeting on March 8th in Orlando. What a coincidence! Guess what day you were scheduled to read to a classroom of students? March 8th. What a coincidence. Allow me to continue. Guess who else canceled that morning? The morning of the reading, Mrs. Karen Rose. I thought you were a teacher who cared about students. Isn't that your platform, Children First? Where were you March 8th? Are you ready for the plot twist, folks? Guess who showed up to read to students? Mr. Edwards. And you know who else? Dr. Harriet Moore was in the classroom reading to students. They made their commitment to Sarasota County Public Schools, students, and teachers a priority, not an afterthought. I believe that actions speak louder than words.
Thank you. Sally Sells, Angela Wynn, Elizabeth Bornstein.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sally. I have a daughter in 4th grade in Sarasota County. This is my idea of hell. Public speaking, as you can tell, as I shake all over the place. I was not planning to speak today, but for once I got down here in time, so here I am. I was streaming the last school board meeting from my kitchen as I was preparing dinner with a glass of wine, which I'd rather be today. And I heard the shocking news that my daughter had been plastered all over Facebook, was read to by a groomer, and that she may be turning gay. And then I remembered, wait, that's not a thing. My daughter was read to by Tom Edwards. My daughter's school picture was put all over Facebook. I went to my daughter because I had to talk to her about 2 different things. One, I had to explain to her what grooming was and why certain people do not like gay people. She has a gay uncle. We have many gay friends that come to our house, and I had to explain to her why people do not like gay people. Sorry, it gets me all upset. I then had to explain to her what grooming was to a 9-year-old. I asked her what she thought of Mr. Edwards. She loved him. He was funny, he was personable, she loved the book he read, she had nothing but lovely things to say about him. And when I hear this, again, this is not what I want to do on my Tuesday evening, but here I am, okay? Ms. Ziegler, I've heard you say multiple times you want to take politics out of the school board. Why do I get emails from your husband claiming how great you are, that you've taken over the Liberal school board, and it's all politics in every one of his emails that he mentions to you? I truly believe we are a testament to the people that we surround us with. As I was scrolling through Twitter, as I want to do, I came across a video of Steve Bannon's War Room. On his shoulder was a Moms for Liberty cup. That's who you choose to associate yourself with. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Wynn, Elizabeth Bornstein, Marjorie Floyd.
Hi there, my name is Angela Wynn. I'm the mother of a child who attends the Sarasota County Public School. I'm also one of the co-founders of Support Our Schools. I will try to make this short and to the point. I am disgusted and appalled not only by the behavior exhibited by Melissa Bacandi at the last meeting, and every meeting for that matter, but even more so by the complete and utter lack of decorum by the chair of this board, Bridget Ziegler, for not shutting down Melissa Bacandi, a person known for attacking those on the dais she doesn't agree with, for the vile and hateful lies she hurled at Mr. Edwards. Allowing an attack like that begs the question, is there a concerted and organized effort between the chair and speakers like Melissa Bacandi? Why else would the chair blatantly disregard moral decency and allow a sickening and disgusting attack that paraded itself as a First Amendment right to continue? Shortly thereafter, another member of this board, Robin Marinelli, then proceeded to vote in a very public poll on social media that the governor should remove Tom Edwards. Preschoolers know how to act right. Why can't the majority of the members of this board do the same? This community would also like some guidelines on what is considered acceptable and unacceptable from a speaker. If someone gets up here and calls a person of color who works for the school board the N-word, would that be considered acceptable? Is that a bridge too far? I'm guessing that wouldn't be allowed. But disparaging someone for their sexual orientation is acceptable. Cute. Have any of these board members even tried to reach out and offer Mr. Edwards an apology? I'm guessing not, as Ms. Ziegler decided to double down in acceptance of Ms. Bacandi's behavior at today's workshop. On social media, Ms. Ziegler even tried to equate an email she received about going back to the kitchen with Mr. Edwards being attacked because of his sexual orientation. Nice try at equivocation, Ms. Ziegler, but I think you should try again. This board, and especially the chair, should be embarrassed by their behavior. This board owes their constituents an apology. And this board, especially the chair, should beg forgiveness from Mr. Edwards for all of your despicable behavior.
Elizabeth Bornstein, Marjorie Floyd.
Greetings, school board members, interim superintendent, board attorney, and our student representative. Testing. We got it? We got it. We're good. We're good. Okay, everybody. Can I have my 3 minutes? Thank you. Greetings, school board members, interim superintendent, board attorney, and our student representative, who, thank goodness, is not here. I am Elizabeth Bornstein. I'm the parent of an elementary school student in the district. I debated coming here tonight. Did I really want to step back into the lion's den? The last meeting was traumatizing. I am here in support of public education here in Sarasota County, and to represent mental health of our students, our teachers, staff, administration, and our community. Last month, I barely made it to the afternoon meeting. I was unable to get a card to address the board on any of the agenda items. The YouTube channel gave me the benefit of listening live while I was driving, or so I thought. Honestly, I had to turn it off because I thought I was going to get into an accident. The hostile, bigoted, homophobic behavior of your Zem followers was 100% atrocious. And once again, the same here this evening. Sarasota schools absolutely have a problem if you plan to continue to allow this unacceptable display of hatred and verbal abuse. And just so you are aware, they display these same extremist rants and loss of control over their behavior at other board meetings in our community. You are not leading Sarasota County Schools well. Is this really about public education, or is this just a smoke and mirrors game of disruption and power play? When I arrived late to your meeting, it was distressing to see children in the room, 2 young children in the audience as if they were at the mall or a movie, and the student representative at the dais thankfully had left. The children are watching. They are our future. Who would intentionally allow children to be present for this content? And surely, Mrs. Ziegler, mother of young children, you can understand traumatizing children to witness such hostility and attacks. And Mrs. Rose and Mrs. Marinelli, as career educators and administrators, Ms. Marinelli, as a retired school counselor, you know how problematic this behavior can be. And yes, it is quite disturbing you receive threats, Ms. Marinelli. I have to wonder, though, if it's your own constituents who you made promises on your campaign to. Your constituents post all over social media voicing their hostile displeasure when you don't follow what they voted you in to do. School board and other community board meetings have also become representative of those same constituents, those taking matters into their hateful hands, like retired General Flynn, right? School boards being political, not being political, it's laughable. And the governor is working to make them just that. You are aligning with this extremist behavior. You are charged to take care of the children in our schools for the success of all. Dr. Asplin said it best. You have to get the politics out of this school district. I am an involved parent, really, truly concerned and truly valuing public education. Please do what your
Thank you. Marjorie Floyd, Jessica Thomason, and that would be it. Is that Marjorie Floyd? Or Jessica Thomason? Nope, not here? Okay, then that concludes the hearing of citizens. Moving on to additions or corrections.
All right, thank you. Addendums were added to item number 7, the instructional and classified personnel report. Item number 28, the charter contract for the College Preparatory Academy at Welland Park was added. And item number 29, the contract for the superintendent search with McPherson and Jacobson was added. Thanks.
Okay, and I also have, I think I have Mr. Enos on the phone above us. So is there a motion for the approval of the consent agenda as amended?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move for approval of the consent agenda as amended.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. I will have to do voice vote. So voice vote. Mr. Enos, we'll start with you. Okay, we'll go to Mrs. Marinelli.
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
And then I'll go back to Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Yes, and the chair votes aye, and the motion passes 4-0, that the consent agenda as amended be approved. Okay, yeah. Moving on to new business. Item number 28. Is there a motion?
Just one step ahead of me.
No worries.
I move for approval of the charter contract for the Florida Charter Education Foundation, Inc., the College Preparatory Academy at Welland Park.
Thank you. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion, a second.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion, and a second to approve the charter contract between the School Board of Florida Charter Education Foundation, Inc., DBA, the College Preparatory Academy at Welland Park. Are there any comments? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion to approve the charter contract between the School Board and Florida Charter Education Foundation, Inc. passes 4-0. Moving on to item number 29. Is there a motion?
I move for approval of the contract for the superintendent search between McPherson and Jacobson, LLC, and the School Board of Sarasota County, Florida.
A motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Are there any comments? Seeing none, I will do a voice vote. Mrs. Marinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion that the contract for the superintendent search between McPherson and Jacobson LLC and the School Board of Sarasota County, Florida, passes 4-0. Item number 11 is the hearing of citizens for, and I don't know if I'm supposed to read this, Patrick, or not, but pursuant to Florida Statute 1006.283, Parent 8B, time will be allocated at the March 21st, 2023 school board meeting to hear public comment on the submission being considered for the adoption of Spanish language level 1 through 4 programs. Additional information along with the section can be found online at the following site. Are there any member comment or any public comments cards on this item? Okay, seeing none. Is there any action on that, Mr. Duggan? Just the public hearing, okay. Come on.
It's just an announcement, sorry.
No worries. Okay, that concludes any action items for this evening. Are there any comments by the board members? I will conclude, I will say that this morning was a fantastic use of time and energy, and I want to thank staff and all of you for the amazing work. It was underscoring what I know we are all very focused on and very passionate about. And I look forward to more conversations in that vein. And I appreciate the leadership. And thank you, Dr. Foster. It really was one of the best workshops we've had in a long time. So with that, oh, Mrs. Marinelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could, I just have a few things.
Of course.
And I think it's unfortunate that Mr. Edwards left and many of the people left. So I would like to address a few things that were said. Number one, my husband and I are very private people. We do not post on Facebook. But I do have permission from my husband, Mark, to divulge this publicly because it was brought up and put on Facebook that the only board members that did show up at the reading of students was Mr. Edwards. And my husband wanted me to thank Tom Edwards, Mr. Edwards, for being there because my husband is going through chemotherapy. And when people put things on Facebook without any kind of verification, they feel like that they can write whatever they want or say whatever they want. But there are certain situations where people cannot attend. And when my husband is going through chemotherapy treatments, it doesn't mean I don't care about students and I don't care about teachers, but he is my top priority at this particular point in time. So he did want me to say thank you to Mr. Edwards for being able to go. And in that light, and this is a legal question, Mr. Duggan, because that pictures of students were on personal Facebook pages, that when parents sign the permission form when they register their child every year, are they giving permission for staff or the union to put pictures of students on their personal pages? And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I do not want to see any staff member get in any kind of trouble. I think it's a protection for all of us. So I would like guidance on that, of what that permission when parents opt for media, what exactly does that entail? Does that entail private Facebook pages, or is it school board?
Well, there's a federal law that governs student privacy, known as FERPA.
Right.
It's a long and complicated statute. Frankly, it's a federal law. Generally, it protects student privacy, except for like a number of exceptions that include the ability to waive, the privacy. I would want to look at whatever was signed by the parents, generally to waive a right, and I'm talking generally without looking at it, needs to be knowing, voluntarily entered, with the understanding of the circumstances for that to be a valid waiver. It would be speculative of me and not thorough for me to comment without looking at what the waiver is. But I would tell you that generally the default is student privacy under FERPA, unless one of the exceptions is strictly met.
That's what I figured, so thank you. And I didn't expect you to answer that as specific. I just think it is something that we need to discuss. And if that permission, that media permission, then that needs to be looked at too.
Sure. Like I said, I don't like to comment on things without knowing all the facts.
Right.
But generally, I
You
think
don't have
that's a
to.
fair statement about what FERPA provides.
I'm just trying to put it on notice. And also, I appreciate all the comments that were said tonight. I find it interesting that it's okay for some people to make comments and others not. And I'm not saying, I mean, I got broad shoulders, I can take anything. But I tallied there are approximately 34 people that spoke. And of those 34, one briefly mentioned student achievement. The whole night was spent on what we've done or not done or how horrible we are or whatever. But one comment on student achievement. And that is what our job is student achievement. And under that student achievement, we do have a responsibility of modeling civility and teaching kids civility. So I would like to see that from everybody at our next board meeting. Instead of, we started the public comments at 6:19 and we stopped at 7:58. One comment on student achievement. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I will just add one other piece that I think with the photo question, and I know that that there had been other people in the community that had brought forward, and I know that it's being looked into. I want to raise that I think it's disheartening all around, because I know the intent of those media releases are to showcase the really great things that are happening in our school. And when there are outside, even including as board members, and certainly as checking to make sure that that's authorized, but when it's used in a manner that I believe, I at least was brought to my attention, that it was done on a personal Facebook page, but done in kind of in a negative way to attack, I think that's where now we're going to have to reevaluate what the right role is for it, and that it just showcases how things can unravel. So, to Mrs. Marinelli's point, is all of us, myself included, of ways that we can continue going back to what was displayed this morning, where we can align and focus on the good or what we need to improve on academically, which is what our mission is. I don't know. I mean, that may be the only way to unify us, but I think it's worth trying. So I appreciate those comments, and I hope it doesn't go to the point where we have to block everything because of an unfortunate circumstance. But with that, I hope everyone has a lovely evening. I know it's been a long day, and if there are no additional comments, we stand adjourned.